Well, good morning, everybody. Another cute for Teams session, Champions Using Teams Effectively in 2022. Glad you're here. This is office hours for you to ask anything. So hopefully come with some questions or just here to hear us geek out. You got myself, Ricardo. You got Stacy. You might have Nash later.
And sometimes we have answers.
Yeah,
not always, but
right.
a lot of times.
Yeah. So so feel free to use chat. Feel free to come off mute. Even raise your hand if you want to be formal. But we're here to hear from you, answer your questions. I was trying to think of anything new and exciting has happened in the last 7 days in the world of Teams. Nothing that
I could say I've been working very hard in the background on getting our feature guide for GCC updated and out. I had hit a little bit of a setback because we've had some fun winter funk in our house, and getting everybody well now, and hopefully we should be able to get that guide out, if not today, early next week. So I'm really excited to see that update, and I know I've had a lot of folks asking about it and are very interested in it, and I can't wait to deliver it. It's just got to dot all those I's and cross all the T's, and then it'll be out. So keep an eye out for that. If you've gone to our URL for that, I'll put it in the chat. If you're not familiar with it, it's a feature guide where I can go to the message center posts that Teams admins get and review those and create slides per each feature, and then help all Teams users understand what those features are and understand when they've landed. Oftentimes there'll be tech community blogs that you can visit too on new features that have landed, but there are some new stuff in the January releases, such as CART captioning for Teams is available now, so you'll see some new slides in that shipped section since December that everyone can be aware of once the guide hits, and you can do some testing in your environments.
Good stuff.
Go ahead and put that URL.
Yeah, and for the recording, I was also showing the deck here. So it's the link she'll be putting, and then also I think you mentioned the public sector blog, which is there as well. Tech community.
Yeah, that's definitely a favorite on my machines.
And you mentioned the CART feature rolling out. Good stuff.
Yeah, so in addition to the shipped section, there's the pending section, and there's been a lot of message center posts announcing new features that are planned coming into the new year. So those slides will be there as well, and you can track them as they move from we're announcing this as something that's coming to, hey, it's actually landed. And that's where I think the value in the guide really lies, because the message center does a fantastic job of telling you what's coming, what the timeline is. If there's any timeline shifts, they do updates to their posts, which is fantastic. They don't always tell you when something's landed. They don't come back and close that loop. So that's what my guide is attempting to do, is to let you know when something is landed. And of course, let you know if there are any key facts or things that you should be aware of in those features as they've landed.
I think as I was scrolling through, I landed on this one. This is one I thought I saw some folks talking about in the past week or so.
Yeah, actually, both of those that you have in your view right now.
Okay.
I've been doing some testing as well. I think both of those are live and are going to reflect in January deliveries in the new guide when it publishes.
What it did make me think about, though, I mean, obviously, if you've been using Teams in the desktop, you've had background effects for a while, but it did make me think about the concept of, folks that are using the web version uh, either a lot or maybe maybe not exclusively, but I'm often in meetings where someone maybe doesn't see a particular thing. Hey, you're showing, like the new presenter view. I don't see your face. And then there's the question, okay, are they out there on the browser or the desktop? Because there is a difference. Obviously, browser's just now getting background effects. And so that concept of kind of knowing who's on browser, who's on desktop, I think is interesting. And in fact, when it comes to troubleshooting, that's usually my first question is, or even my first suggestion is, let's get on the desktop first to see if there's still a trouble, or is this something that's just you're on the browser and that feature's not there, or or something like that. So I see that a lot, and I in the back of my mind I always wonder if people are joining through the browser because it's convenient, or it just opens there first. Versus the desktop. Those of us that are in Teams all day long, the desktop, makes sense, but maybe the browser makes sense. And so I don't know, folks that are out there, I don't know if you feel like you got a high percentage of browser users versus desktop, but at least, browser users should be aware that it's not, it's probably 90% like the client, but there are some things that are different, and they should be aware of that. If you really want the best meeting experience, I would think that would be the client, the desktop client. If for nothing else, the different presenter views and all that good stuff.
So we've had a request from Glenn to talk about and demo private channels. One of my least favorite topics.
Your least favorite? Well, let's talk about why that's your least favorite.
No, I think there's definitely a place for the use of private channels. I am just one that leans towards I want all of the rich feature set that comes in a team. And to me, I have a hard time justifying why not just create a whole nother team for whoever that private group might be, especially when it's interwoven into a team, where I'm segmenting off another group. It just feels like another team to me, but yeah. I'm sure there are absolute relevant reasons to go with a private channel. And the other reason is that there's just a limited feature set in private channels today, in comparison to a standard channel. So, and I'm sure that you could demo that. You've got it queued up. So let's see, perhaps there's a use case that Glenn might want to bring forth that we could talk about, whether that private channel is the perfect fit.
Right. And just to get us on the same page, private channels are, they would be a channel within a team. I don't know if I have one already, but a channel within a team for which you are deciding which subset of the team members can see that channel, because your typical channel you created and everyone can see it and have access to it. And so, you can see that there's one in this particular team with the little lock on it. And if I were to, hit that, I could add members to that channel, right? It's different from any other channels. So let me just add one here, add a channel. See, it looks the same as the standard one, but then we choose private, give it a name, and create our channel. And then we decide which members go into that channel. So say it's, me and Nestor only, let's say. I could add others. Okay. And so, and certainly I could flip to different users to show that channel is invisible. So it's not just that the channel is showing for everyone with a lock. It's invisible to everyone else. So only Nestor and myself could see this one. But once we're in it, it relatively looks like a typical channel. to me, that one of the biggest differences about it is that it is getting its own files area separate from the rest of the team. So on the back end, there's a whole additional SharePoint site for the files of that channel. And that will be the case for every private channel you create. To me, the main use case I always think about and I always talk through when I'm talking about private channels is the manager's channel. You got a team full of, got a large team with everyone in it, and there's managers that need to talk about manager things. That to me makes sense to kind of hide that conversation or that, whole life cycle of stuff, conversation or files. So a manager's only channel, I think, is a common use case. And then going a step further with managers and HR kind of related things. Let's say you had a team where you wanted one-on-ones with team members, right? Again, so I'm a manager. I've created a team for my reports, and now I want a channel per report to do one-on-one related stuff that other team members don't need to see. Obviously, if you got 100 reports, then that's going to be challenging. If you got 10 reports, not so much. So those are two. I don't know, Stacy, any other scenario, or even Glenn, any other scenarios you can think of?
I did like that one. I'd not thought of it from a manager perspective in a departmental team. I think that would be very interesting, especially if you had a manageable number of direct reports. That could facilitate a lot of collaboration in new ways, one-on-one.
Right. And then so I was trying to think about the limitations. So because initially when they came out, I think one of the first limitations was e-discovery, which I think we've got now for private channels. Am I right, Stacy?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at first, private channels were not a part of e-discovery. Now they are. I think the other limitations come by way maybe of some of the tabs that are.
It has a limited app set.
Right.
Like I don't believe Planner is available in a private channel.
Right. Yeah. So there's a list that maybe will get shorter and shorter over time, but there is a list of things that are different. And channel meetings, isn't that another one, or have we added that too? I think. Yeah, you can do Meet Now, but I don't think you can do channel meetings.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, because I'm even trying. I should have just like this one here. Let me see here. Where's my? Oh, so actually, I would say come here and try to do a channel meeting. And if I go to my channels, I am not. Where is my? Yeah, so I don't have the private channel that I just select. It's not an option. So if you're a big channel meeting user, you're not going to get that, but you do get Meet Now, which, where am I? Which still works for that manager scenario, right? I'm coming in here for one-on-one or something. A Meet Now maybe makes sense. I don't know. It could go all kinds of different ways, but yeah, no, channel meetings to me is one of the big ones, and limited apps. And then yes, Glenn has mentioned in chat separate files, which could have some value. Now, then the question would be, so if I do a search for files, I think I'm going to get all my standard and private. I am, but certainly someone else who is not part of that channel would not get file results from the private channels if they're not a part of. And then I think there's a limit to the number of private channels. Versus standard channels, so that might be another limitation as well. But yeah, often I don't know about the downsides, but some of the things that usually come up that I've heard from customers is just, the overhead of that additional SharePoint site for those files. And then the overhead of just managing the team members, because it's not, immediately clear who's a member, here. Now I can click your standard, let me go back to this one. Click my standard little I button here and I can see my members there. But if you use a lot of these, that could get a bit unwieldy.
Well, and I will say in the government cloud, and this may be true for commercial cloud too, there used to be a limit of 30 private channels in a team. So like in Florida, there was an interest in doing private channels for each of our counties. Well, we have 67 counties. So that immediately drove us to a team approach rather than a channel approach. So in that particular use case. So keep that in mind, that there is an upper limit of those private channels. So if you have more than 20 direct reports, you might be treading really close to that top limit, especially if you have any turnover at all.
And then what's on the roadmap is the shared channel concept. So then you'll eventually have three types of channels you can create. And that share one being one that can add external people just to that channel. So today, if you want to collaborate with someone externally, you're adding them to the team. They see everything in all its glory. Now you can add them. They see nothing in the team except the channel you add them to. So that's kind of cool. There's a little more to that also, but that's the high level description. So yeah, that's the private channel concept.
Yeah, and I went and grabbed the, oh shoot, that's not the link I wanted. I was going to grab a blog post on that shared channel just to give folks a resource, but I'll have to dig around a little bit more.
I also wonder if there's any limitations even if you're doing Meet Now in that private channel. Kind of wondering what that experience is like. I don't know that I've ever tried that. Certainly the number of apps should be limited, but yeah, for instance, I'm not seeing a breakout room for this Meet Now, which suggests no breakout rooms for private channels.
Yeah, I recall that limit now that you've gone and clicked in there, that was also something that would have to come later to private channels.
So if you were thinking of maybe using a private channel for some kind of big meeting, but we're also hoping to do breakout rooms in that channel, then that would be a problem. So yes, Glenn asked to talk more about that, inviting external people. And yeah, so I can talk about it in general, and then we can get specific to that upcoming feature as well. But I do definitely, with customers, like to point out that you can collaborate with anybody on the planet with a internet connection and a browser, essentially, and an email address, I guess, would be the third requirement, right? So if I want to bring in Jane at gmail.com or whoever, I can add member and put their external email address, and Teams is ready to add them as a guest. On the back end, Jane does some things to authenticate and associate their Gmail account with the Microsoft Cloud, essentially, and then she's in as Jane parentheses guest, right? And from that point can do most of the collaboration features that the rest of the team can do. So she can participate in chat, she can create and edit files that are there. In fact, there's a site somewhere for a list of different features. I was trying to think what she couldn't do. I know it's usually things like she can't create new channels. Um,
Yeah,
I know
I'll grab that with the
yeah,
table on it. I know which one you're talking about.
yeah. I know often I'm a guest in many customers' sites, and so if I have an idea for a new channel, I have to suggest it to the owner, like, hey, you should could you make, or make a new channel. I think even some tabs, creating new tabs might be a limitation, because I feel like those are things I'm often asking the owner of the team to do for me since I'm a guest.
Yep.
But if it's about, you know, channel meetings and files, collaboration and chatting, get all of that with anybody on the planet, um, with that add guest feature. This all assumes on the back end that your tenant, there is certainly a button to say yes or no to the allowing the ability to have external guests. Assuming that is on, I think it's on by default, or yes by default, then you can do that. So yeah, that's a great feature for those that do want external collaboration. Um, that's where that shared channels and Stacy put the link in the chat, takes that even further, because today, um, being that I can open up to externals, I might feel more comfortable making a new team to, let's say, collaborate with vendor X. I don't want them necessarily in the same team as all my other stuff or all my other people. So now I'm making new teams for different groups of external parties. But now this thought that even in our, let's say, our project team for the morale event, a channel I create just for vendor X, who's handling our, I don't know, our fireworks light show that's part of our event. I can chat and collaborate with them in that one channel. It's still a part of the morale project team, but they're not seeing all the other stuff and all the other people there. So and to me, one of the biggest things about that shared channel is that we're not seeing each other as guests. We're seeing each other in what looks like we're all like, not first party, but like we're natively in the same organization. So,
Federated.
Teams is handling that federation, that seamless federation on the back end. But for us, it just looks like fellow, colleagues, so none of that tenant switching and all that good stuff. That's the huge part to me. I mean, it's all huge, but that's a big deal to me.
So one quick question came in the chat, and I want to make sure that we clear up any confusion whatsoever around someone joining your meeting from an external party to being a member of a team. Those are two totally different guest areas.
Yep.
In your team meeting, if you invite someone to a team meeting who's not in your same organization, they can participate in your meeting. Depending on your tenant rules or your meeting options that you've set, they can have access to the chat. But once that meeting is over and you've either clicked end if you're the owner or the organizer of the meeting, their access to Teams is done. I mean, they wouldn't have any access to a team or a channel or anything below or across the Teams UI from the boundary of that meeting. Now, if you add them as a member to a team, and Glenn asked about how you get rid of them, how do you remove them? Then you just remove their membership from that team when it's time for them to no longer have access. So Ricardo's drilling in there to add the member, or maybe he's got an external one, I don't know, but you can just go and remove their access. And you'd have to be the team owner, right, potentially, to do that. But you will be able to remove access to anyone you've granted as a member of a team, and that's internal or external. You have the ability to add and remove your team members.
And I always forget which one of these I'm a owner of, so that's why I'm kind of clicking around. But yeah, to your point, I usually say, when you're adding a guest to a meeting, that's guest with a lowercase g. But when we're talking about adding a guest to a team, that's guest with a capital G, because that's a guest. That concept of a guest is something that Teams and Azure AD and all that understands this is an guest is an actual kind of thing versus the just the idea of someone as a guest in your meeting. So yeah, and even that guest in your meeting as a guest or an anonymous user, they're very limited even in that meeting. So so yeah,
Right.
very aware. Teams is very aware of rights and whatnot. Teams versus meeting, and again, for both of those, people can be removed if they were in a meeting. I was trying to find a good example. Yeah, this one here. The X button would take them out of the chat if, for instance, that meeting that the chat was still going and you wanted that person out of the chat. That X is going to remove them out of the chat. And then same with the teams. If I could remember which one of these I'm an owner of, the manage team would take you to the members, and there would be a removal option here as well. Oh, so I am the owner here. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with. Oh, I was a little too zoomed in, so zoomed.
Yeah,
you were missing so much that my X.
You're missing your X.
All right, there we go. There's the X for taking people out of the team. So, but yeah, great question. Yeah, every time
I like the little G, big G. I love that. Lowercase G, uppercase G.
Every time that comes up, I always think, there should be a whole session related to guest collaboration, because Nash talked about it last week in some detail. And I think he came up with 4 different scenarios just in terms of maybe adding a guest to a meeting. So yeah, there's a 30-minute session in there.
Yeah.
Easily. On that if we really wanted to. Yeah. But yeah, great question. Any others? We got a couple minutes here. Any other burning questions out there? See some typing going on in the chat. Just trying to think if there was anything super fancy coming up here soon. I mean, the share channels is a cool one. Yeah, I don't know what the date. Is there a date for that share channel?
Yeah, probably somewhere, but I don't recall it offhand. But I'll go and look. Let's see.
Oops, that's not what I wanted. Just check the public roadmap here.
Yeah, we're going to the same place. I'll let you go.
Let's see if it's one of these. Because do we call it shared channels? I thought it was called.
It's Teams Connect.
There it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Teams Connect. And rolling out. Let's see. What am I missing it? There we go. Support. Well, that's support for third.
Is it still in development?
Oh, is that what it? In development, it could be. Data Microsoft Teams Connect. So preview March for the preview. So we're a ways out for everybody, not just government.
Right.
So yeah, we got a ways to go. But yeah, if you're the link Stacy put in the chat, there's a good one if you want to get a little info about how that would work. And maybe a little piece on guests each week or okay. I think that in the chat you're suggesting we talk more about the guest concept on future sessions. I think is what you're talking there.
I think so. Yeah, he put that as you were saying, how it was easily a whole 30-minute session or more.
Yeah. Come up with good and good demos for it too. It might need some prep on our end, Stacy, to
right to have that guest standing by.
Yeah.
Stacy 1 and Stacy 2 and
Right,
Stacy
right.
3.
Well, good deal. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. So yeah, we'll think about some guest stuff in the future. I know we talked. There was an ask about files demos. So if you could think of any file related stuff you want to see, let us know. But yeah, we'll come back at it next week and see what we can do. So glad everybody was able to
Great.
join, and hope you have a good day and good weekend.
Yeah. Thanks, Ricardo.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.